What's going on, you guys? Frost here, and I'm back with another guide. This time we'll be talking about Kalista. The following subjects will be mentioned in this guide: champion description, abilities, leveling order, runes, masteries, the item build, and ending off with the lane matchups. If you want to go to a specific subject straight away, you can click on it right now. Champion description. Kalista is a very mobile AD carry with a very high skill cap. She doesn't have the best early game, which is pretty much your only problem. But even though her early game is kinda rough, you can still play around this pretty well, by just simply forcing all-ins with your rend. Once you reach mid-game on Kalista, she becomes pretty much unkillable, unless you yourself make a mistake by jumping wrong. Also, in the current tank meta, Kalista is one of the best AD carries, because she makes really good use of Blade of the Rune King. If you like a highly mobile champion with a high skill cap, Kalista is definitely the champion for you. Kalista's abilities. Her passive, Martial Poise. This is what makes Kalista so mobile. After every auto attack, you do a move command, and Kalista will make a short dash toward that location. This can also be used to jump over walls. You can't cancel this animation, so be careful and always try to think one step ahead, especially in lane. This also applies on her first ability. Another effect from her passive is that she will gain a Black Spear at the start of the game. This is an item that binds another champion to Kalista. This champion will become Kalista's Oddsworn for the remainder of the game. Her first ability, Pierce. Kalista hurls a fast and narrow spear, dealing physical damage to the first enemy struck. If you kill this enemy, the spear will continue onwards, passing all range tracks from the dead victim to the next enemy it hits. This skill can be used to jump over very thin walls in the game, whenever you want, because you can use it whenever you want to get a jump from your passive. This skill is great for poking the enemy in a lane. You can put 3 rend stacks on a minion, and then right before it dies, you can pierce to kill that minion, hitting the enemy support or the AD carry with those 3 rend stacks, plus the rend stack and the damage from pierce. After you did this, you can either use your E right after to get some damage, or you can try to hit a minion for a reset. You can also use this to set up an all-in, because you will gain 4 free stacks, and 4 free stacks are 2 auto attacks on Kalista. Her second ability, Sentinel. If Kalista and her Oddsworn auto-attack the same target within 2 seconds of each other, the target will take magic damage equal to a percentage of their maximum health. This effect can only happen on the same target once every 6 seconds, and the damage is capped against minions and monsters. If you were to press this skill, Kalista will send a Soul Sentinel to a location of your choice, gaining sight in a 450 range cone in front of it. This skill is great. You can use it together with your support to get very efficient trades in lane, as well as gaining vision in certain areas of the map. Her third ability, Rend. Kalista's auto attack and pierce will leave her target speared for 4 seconds. Remember, when this skill is on cooldown, the passive will be unavailable. Upon activating, Kalista will rip out all the spears from the nearby enemies, dealing physical damage and slowing them for 2 seconds. If you kill something with Rend, the cooldown will be refreshed and it will refund 20 mana for each target killed. This caps at 40 mana. This skill is amazing. It gives you a few things. Mainly, you can pretty much always win all-ins in lane, because you will have that extra burst damage from all the spears you hit in the other AD carry. When you get your Renans later in the game, this skill can also be used to wave clear entire waves pretty much instantly. And this skill is pretty much a smite that can be used on Dragon and Baron for a lot of damage. Generally, so much that it will outdamage the actual smite. Her fourth ability, Fate's Call. Kalista draws her Oddsworn ally next to her, vanishing them and disabling their spells for 4 seconds. During this skill, Kalista's Oddsworn can right-click a target location to dash to, stopping at the first enemy hit, and knocking him and all the surrounding enemies up. This skill can be used to either save your support from dying, or to engage with your support. Don't underestimate the power of engaging with this skill, because the knockup that scales from 1.5 seconds up to 2 seconds can mean a lot. Leveling these abilities. On Kalista, I take E on level 1. You could take W on level 1 if you trust your support to use the auto attack. A W start is nice because it deals 12% of the target's health for just one auto attack from both you and your support. On level 2, I take either W or E, whatever one I didn't take on level 1. Although, if you don't trust your support for some reason, you can take E level 1 and Q level 2. On level 3, take whatever skill you don't have yet. As far as maxing skills goes, I max my E first. This offers you the best wave clear and free poke, as well as very high kill pressure. Then I max my Q second, this offers you some good burst and some good mobility, and I max my W last, since putting points into this doesn't really do much. You'll be highly dependent on your support this way, and of course you take R whenever possible. The runes. I have two different rune pages for Kalista. The first one is the one I use. It contains 9 AD marks, 9 armor seals, 9 attack speed glyphs, 1 AD and 2 attack speed quints. The downside about this rune page is it pretty much has no MR, only armor. The upside about this rune page, however, is that you have a lot more attack speed and damage. The second rune page is what I would recommend you to use. It contains 9 AD marks, 9 armor seals, 9 flat armor glyphs and 3 flat attack speed quints. This offers you MR, and this will help you in lane against supports that do AP damage, like Lulu or Annie. It also helps you outside of lane to survive your opponent's mid laner just that little bit better. This rune page basically allows mistakes more. The Masteries. I got 21-9-0 on Kalista, getting everything that increases my damage in offense. I don't get Dangerous Game on Kalista because she is pretty close range. The damage increase also doesn't matter that much, but you don't want to take more extra damage than you already are taking, because you're really squishy. And I take 9 in defense, getting myself health, health regen and damage reduction. The item build. I have two different build paths for Kalista. You can take a different build path depending on what kind of team you're up against. If you're up against a team that has either a tank, jungler or top laner, you go for build path 1. If you're playing against a team that uses a double AP comp or at least a lot of squishies, you can take build path 2. You will mostly be using build path 1 because people love tanks in the current meta. There's also an LCS build path. This is generally what I would not recommend you go for solo queue because it takes a lot of gold and you really need to get your CS. It also requires you to play very safe, which in solo queue doesn't really help you at all, honestly. Alright, now, let's get into the builds. Starting off with build path number 1. You start with a Doran's Blade, a health potion and a warding trinket. Your goal is not to back before you can at least buy a Vamp Scepter. After you have bought your Vamp Scepter, you want to build into a Cutlass. You can obviously just stay in lane and buy your Cutlass straight up as well. However, if you're forced to back at around 1100 gold, you want to get yourself not only a Vamp Scepter but also a pair of regular boots. Now, after you've bought your Cutlass, your next item will depend on the amount of gold you back with. If you back with enough to finish your Blade of the Rune King, do so. If you don't have enough for it, and you just back with, let's say, 1k gold, you want to get yourself some Berserker's Greaves. If you have less than 1k gold, you want to get yourself at least regular boots, and all the spare money you have will go into daggers. After you finish your Blade of the Rune King and Berserker's Greaves, you want to start building into Renaant's Hurricane. The way you build it doesn't really matter, since there is no best way of building Renaant's Hurricane by buying components a certain way. After you finish your Renaant's, you want to start building into a Bloodthirster. This item will offer you a massive amount of sustain in teamfights, as you will lifesteal a lot. This is because your Renaant's hits will also give you lifesteal, both from your Blade of the Rune King and your BT. The way you want to build this BT will depend on how much money you have. If you have enough for a BF Sword, buy that first. If you don't have enough for a BF Sword, buy Vamp Scepter first. After a BT, you'll probably want to get yourself a Lost Whisper. Because most likely, at this stage of the game, people have bought armor. And Lost Whisper will help you thread through those people even faster. And as a final item, you will have a couple options. The first option and my most preferred option is a Mercurial Scimitar. This item offers you a way to get out of either exhaust or a stun. And also things like Zed's Death Mark. But it also offers you a lot of damage. The second option is a Banshees. This item will offer you MR, health, and a way to block a spell from hitting you. I will get this if I'm playing against something like Vi, so she can ult me straight away out of the blue. You can also get this item if you don't trust yourself to use your Quicksilver stash fast enough. And as a third and final choice, you want to go for an Infinity Edge. But I would only recommend going for this one if the enemy team has pretty much no CC. This is very rarely happens. And now for build path number 2. You also start with a Doran's Blade, a health potion and a warding trinket. Your goal here is to stay in lane until you can buy yourself a BF Sword. If you can't stay in lane this long and you're forced to back earlier, try to at least get a Vamp Scepter and maybe some regular boots. After this, don't build random small items if you can't stay in lane for too long. You need to save up for that BF Sword to get a BT. Don't upgrade your regular boots in this build before you actually have finished your BT, because it will slow you down a massive amount. After finishing your PT, you want to buy/finish your boots into Berserker's Greaves first. After buying and finishing your boots, the next item you want to go for is Renance. This item is just so good on Kalista because it offers you a lot of wave clear and pushing power. And along with BT, this item will give you a lot more lifesteal than you will actually need at this stage in the game. After finishing Renance, you want to build into a Lost Whisper. This item will give you a lot of armor ignore, so you'll be able to deal a lot more damage to a target with armor. And you're gonna need this if you don't get a Bladed Rune King for HP shred. After your Lost Whisper, I generally go for an Infinity Edge, because this will help you in dealing even more damage to targets that aren't tanky at all, especially if you get that crit. But there are cases where I prefer going for Frozen Mallet after my Lost Whisper. This is because I will only do this build against squishy enemy team, but if they are squishy, they will most likely deal a lot of damage. So a Mallet will give you a lot of health as well as giving you the potential to kite even better. So they can really kill you before you kill them. And as a final item, it is pretty much the same for build number 1, for the same reasons. But instead of considering an IE as last item, consider getting yourself a Mallet if you didn't get it earlier. And for the LCS type of build on Kalista, it's pretty much the same as build number 2. You start building into a Bladed Rune King, but instead of getting a Renance, you get yourself a Phantom Dancer. And after this Phantom Dancer, you want to build into an Infinity Edge. Finishing off with a Lost Whisper into a Banshee's or Mercurial Scimitar. People go for this build because it's more powerful late game for pretty much any AD carry with the most single target damage. But it's also the most expensive build, and also you will have to get peel from your team, because this build doesn't help you sustain/kite as well as my other builds do. And in solo queue, you shouldn't counter your team peeling for you. And as a final note, switch your Warding Trinket into a blue trinket whenever your support buys a Sightstone, because that will pretty much render your Warding Trinket useless. The lane matchups. On screen right now you can see an overview of how difficult it is to play against certain matchups, and also what supports are good and bad with Kalista. The way you want to read this is, let's say if you have a lane of Lucian and Janna, they are both average to go against as Kalista. So you'll need a higher tier support, let's say Lulu, to come out on top of this lane. If you were to have the same tier of support, for example Thresh, this lane will probably turn out to go even. Another example, let's say you're playing against Graves Leona. This is both a hard AD carry and a hard support to play against. In this case, you want to have one of the good supports to even go even in lane. If you have anything lower than a good support, you're likely to lose this lane. And finally, if you're playing against an easy AD carry and a hard support, don't take this lane for granted, because the support does a lot in lane, and anytime you're against a hard support, be very careful, because if you have anything lower than a good support yourself, this lane is hard to win. A quick final note, this chart is assuming everyone is as good as the other player. You can always still completely stomp a lane that has both a hard AD carry and a hard support in it, while you only have a bad support. Everything comes down to mistakes that are made and the way things work out. Thank you guys so much for watching this guide on Kalista. From this point onwards, I want to let you guys decide what guide I'll make next. So leave that in the comments or tweet it at me. My Twitter is @fset_frost. If you have enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please click that like button, as this really helps me grow my channel. This way, I will be able to help more people. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll respond to them as soon as I can. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!